Hello, dear students. This presentation today will be about certification and attestation of mediators. There are certain differences between what is certification and what is attestation process, and both processes are organized in some European countries, but not at all in all. So therefore, in my presentation, I will mostly concentrate on the story of Latvia, but I will present you possible methods and possible models which you can use in your own countries when certifying or attesting the mediators. First of all, what is certification? Certification is organized and legally regulated process in which a candidate is admitted to a group of certified mediators. For instance, a person is working as a mediator, but in the particular country it is possible to become also a certified mediator, thus being admitted to a group of persons with certification. And attestation is also a process which is organized and legally regulated, in which mediator who already has a certificate overgoes through the attestation process and proves that all the previous activities, all the previous performance has been done well, and therefore the certified mediator may continue to hold a certificate and continue working as in a capacity of certified mediator for the next stage, for the next time frame. There are various models how the mediation process can be organized in countries, and various models of control and supervision over mediators. For instance, there is a permissive model. Permissive model would mean that the country do not regulate at all who are mediators and how they are working. So, in other words, anybody can be a mediator. So, for instance, if the person has gone through some mediation courses, or maybe a person has read a book about mediators, skills and methods to be used in the process, so the person can freely call himself or herself a mediator and practice as such. Permissive model causes many risks, and the most important of which is that the unskilled and unprofessional mediators can also enter the market of mediators. Another model is a controlling model. Controlling model means that only mediators who are certified may work as certified mediators. This is a very strict model, and the benefit of this model would be that only the best and the highest qualified persons are working as mediators, but the restriction also means that maybe other talented persons who have not undergone the process are excluded from the mediators market. And there's also a combined model. Combined model would mean that both that certified and non-certified mediators may practice with some legal nuances. For instance, in Latvia, these nuances are that courts may recommend to the litigants to apply only for certified mediators. So the court is allowed to present to parties a list of certified mediators. But on the other hand, the parties are free to choose either certified or non-certified mediator of their choice. What benefits provide initial certification of mediators? In other words, what are the benefits if mediators are certified at all? So the benefit number one would be that that is a professional control over candidates applying for mediator status, which means that those candidates are examined, candidates are checked, and the Commission of Examination of Mediators is deciding whether the particular candidate is able to undertake this position and to work as a mediator. Another benefit is that only the most qualified, only the most skilled persons are admitted to work as certified mediators. And the ones who lack these skills, these persons are failing in the examination process. And another benefit is that the particular country in which the certification process is organized, that the country grants that mediators who have certificates are able to lead the process and are able to be qualified and be able to help the parties in mediation. There are also some risks which are connected with certification of mediators. For instance, there could be a risk that country too much regulates the admission process. As we know from the administrative law, not all the sectors should be controlled and not all sectors should be left under the supervision of the administrative institution. So therefore, too strict regulation of certification attestation can also be dangerous for the development of the mediator's profession. There is also a risk that a certification process is too strict and only a very narrow circle of persons, of candidates, can become mediators. For instance, if the law would provide that certified mediators could be only persons who have graduated particular courses from some particular institution, that would be too strict, too narrow regulation of the particular situation. There is also financial risk. Mostly in the countries where mediators are certified, the candidates have to pay a state fee for applying for mediator's exam. And if the state fee is fixed at a too high level, there is the risk that some persons are not financially able to pay this admission fee. Let's talk about the attestation of mediators. So what are the benefits if the country has organized attestation of mediators? Benefit number one would be that practicing mediators are controlled and supervised during their practice. So imagine the situation if the mediators are certified once and there is no attestation process in the country, so which means that mediator has passed the exam 10 years ago and then continues practice without any further supervision, without any further examinations, further ongoing courses. There's a high risk that this mediator is just losing the skills and maybe professionally admitting some unacceptable behavior. So therefore, attestation is a right process where the person can be checked and inspected whether the person keeps professionally growing. Another benefit is that practicing certified mediator is motivated to keep learning and raising mediator's skills. So if certified mediator knows that in 5 years, in 4 years of term, the mediator will have to present the documents to Attestation Commission that some courses are attended, and the mediator is has motivation to attend those courses and to keep growing in the professional field. Also, practicing certified mediator is motivated to practice, which means that not only the mediator receives the certificate and keeps it in the bookshelf, but the mediator is really accepting the clients, practicing mediation, and also growing in the professionality. Therefore, one of the elements which is checked in attestation process is checking whether the person has practiced in the mediation field and whether the person really has applied the methods, the tools, and other elements of mediator's professionality. There are also risks which are connected with regular attestation of mediators. For instance, if there are excessively high requirements for ongoing courses, for instance, if the law provides that only those persons will be attested who have undergone like 300 hours of ongoing courses, that this number would be very high, and at some times it would be just impossible for practicing mediators. So therefore, that excessive requirement would, in other words, be unproportionate and therefore not acceptable in the particular situation. Also, excessively high requirements for organized mediation processes. For instance, if the law states that the mediator only then will be attested, if the mediator proves that incredibly high amount of mediation hours are led, let's say 40 hours of mediation sessions per week, which would be impossible for most of the practicing mediators. Another risk would be connected with limited possibilities to attend some specific courses. For instance, if the law would say that only those persons will be attested who have attended courses only in one particular institution, that would be again restrictive and non-acceptable requirement, although may be stated in the law. And here are sample requirements how to become a certified mediator, but each country in the European Union is free to choose what will be the criteria which types of persons will be admitted to the mediator's exam and to mediator's profession. So criteria number 1 is certain age. In Latvian law, this is 25 years old person. In other countries, this limit could be different. Why the age matters? Because, well, the experience shows that only with a certain age, person gets some life skills and raises as a personality. So the 25 years old person is enough of the adult age, able to know the life, able to understand the persons, able to have communication skills, and moreover also to have a university diploma of higher educational degree. How the person can prove the age? By presenting the passport or ID card to the examination commission. Another requirement is possession of good reputation. How to prove a good reputation? There are two options how to prove that. One option would be to submit references from other persons or from other institutions, or another option would be if there is just lack of negative information about the person. Also, checking of good reputation is connected with further supervision at the ethical level. If mediator who has already received a certificate and already practices, for some reason receives a complaint against the professionality of the mediator, thus losing good reputation, the person can be excluded from the list of certified mediators. Requirement number 3 is necessity to hold a higher education diploma. Some countries limit the educational requirements by stating that only, for instance, psychologists and lawyers may be mediators. Some countries leave it very open to any higher educational diploma, not limiting that to some certain profession. In this case, a document is presented, a copy of document is presented to Mediation Commission. Requirement number 4 is that the mediator shall be fluent in state language. Again, this requirement is optional for the countries of the choice. In Latvia, there is a necessity to know fluently the state language, which is Latvian language, but this requirement can differ in other states. Then, next requirement is only the person who has attended certain hours of mediation courses may become a mediator. And here the law can be very different, let's say starting from some 60 hours up to 200 or less or more hours, but this amount of hours is fixed in the law. And the higher the hours, the more time a person needs to invest before the mediation exam. Mostly the countries do not limit the courses or educational institutions where the mediator should receive these hours of courses. That could be university establishments, that could be some NGOs, or the courses of the same country or from abroad. That can really be very different. Next requirement is a mediator must hold certificate. So if the mediator passes the exam and receives certificate, mediators can start practicing as a mediator. Requirement number 7 is the mediator may not have any criminal records. This means that mediator may not be criminally convicted. That would be against good reputation. But the law says very explicitly that no criminal records are allowed. Here we can compare this requirement. This is similar also to requirements for the advocates to be a notary or a judge or a state prosecutor. And some more requirement sample is the mediator may not have against himself or herself any court judgment, which would say that the person is not allowed to practice as mediator. If such judgment would be, the mediator shall be excluded immediately from the list of the certified mediators. Here let's have a look at the sample process of exam, how to become a certified mediator. So again, all European Union countries are free to choose the examination process, how they organize, how they admit candidates to become certified mediators. And this is just one of the examples which is practiced already for 4 years in Republic of Latvia. We have an examination process of 3 stages. The stage number 1 is multiple choice test. The stage number 2 is necessity to write 2 essays about mediation-related subjects. And the final stage is that mock mediation process needs to be organized. And let's have a look how each of these stages are realized. So stage number 1 is multiple choice test. The country again is free to decide how many questions will be in this multiple choice test. Could it be 10 or could it be 100? It should be of a reasonable level and should cover the whole spectrum of mediators' skills and knowledges. And we should take into account that each year the test should change because the candidates keep returning back to the mediation examination process, and there is also a risk that the candidates may disclose some or even all the questions to the next candidates. So therefore, the size of the test and the number of questions to be included in the test should be of strict enough, but like at the same time reasonable amount to be changeable every year. Next question which should be considered is number of possible answers. Could there be 2 or 3 or more possible answers for each question, and also how many answers are correct? For instance, there are 2 or for instance there are 4 possible answers given, and is one of them correct, or 3 or 4, or should the candidate find the correct answer? So the more complicated is the system, the more difficult it is for candidate to find the correct answer. Another issue which should be considered here is a percentage of correct answers, which must be gathered to be considered that the candidate has passed this stage. Let's say the candidate has answered correctly to 70% of the answers. Could we consider that this result is successful, or could we put a higher stage, like only when 80% of the answers are correct? So this is again a choice of the country where to put this strictness limit. One more issue to be considered: how many members of the examination commission is checking the answers. And it is highly recommended that not one person is checking the examination, but even 2 or 3 persons are checking the same answer sheet of the same person, to exclude mistakes, to exclude any risks of breaching the objectivity. Let's have a look at the next stage. So if the candidate successfully has passed the first stage, then the next stage is a process of writing of essays. The candidates are given, usually this is 2, sometimes 3 topics to which the candidate is writing the essay, and the writing process is in the presence of commission members, and candidate is given a time from 1 to 3 hours when the essay shall be finished. Here the commission needs to have a clarity said before what criteria will be used to say if the essay is of high quality. Is it a length, or is it a reference sources indicated, or is it a broadness of answers, or is there some other factors which will be considered as known as of high quality and showing all the knowledge of the candidate. Again, 2 or even 3 persons are reading the same essays of the same persons and answering the same questions, so to grant objectivity and to know in advance that this part is passed successfully. The next stage is, and final stage is organized mock mediation process. The candidates who have successfully passed the first and the second stage are further admitted to the third stage, and they have to organize mock mediation process. The role of the commission is to write possible cases for mediation and to select types of the cases for the mock mediation. For instance, there can be a family mediation case, a business or a labor law case, how many cases should be prepared for the exam? Mostly there are like 3 to 6 possible cases for the exam. And when the candidate is entering the room of mock mediation process, the candidate chooses one ticket and sees which number of which case he has to organize or she has to organize mediation process in. One aspect which should be considered into and taken into account is that pre-selection of actors is needed. So to organize mock mediation process, we have to have actors. And they could be either students or volunteers from NGOs or practicing mediators who can play parties to the mediation process of the candidate mediator. The mediator shall be able to set the room of the mediation process and to show all the skills which the mediator shall possess at that particular time. And also the Commission may dictate from which stage from which moment the mediator shall organize the process. Could it be introductory part, which is the most easy stage, or should it be already the second part where the parties start to disclose their information? So the candidate has not only the case but also the stage from which the process shall be organized. Examination Commission, the members of the Examination Commission silently observes the process. They are in the same room where mock mediation goes on. They observe the process and they fill in evaluation sheets answering the questions: was a mediator successful? What methods mediator used? What skills, what tools mediator could show? And after the mock mediation process is completed, the Commission has a short discussion, short conversation with the candidate, like asking about the strong or weak parts in the process. Here, let's have a slight look at the sample process of attestation. So let's say the candidate mediator has successfully passed the exam, has become a mediator, has received certificate. How frequently attestation should happen? Mostly from the laws we see that attestation happens and proceeds every 3 or even every 10 years. In Latvia, this is every 5 years after the certification is done. And the sample documents which the Commission can ask to the mediator is, for instance, a report about the 10 up to 20 led mediation processes. And in this report, the mediator explains what was the case, what methods the mediator used, what was specific details of the case. Of course, confidentiality is granted and the mediator is not disclosing the names of the parties, but just the type of the case and the most bright characteristics of the particular situation. Next documents which are submitted are copies of diplomas, because the certified mediator has to continue education and has to attend next hours of studies in the courses and educational establishments. For instance, that could be 50 hours of courses or maybe 200 hours of courses. That is a choice of particular country. And again, usually this process is against payment of fee. So the certified mediator who is undergoing the process of attestation is paying the state fee and attaching to the documents this payment document as well. So all in all, when we look at the process of certification attestation, we can see that the benefits, the highest benefit which is gained through the certification and attestation is that the country is maintaining continuously high standards for professionals who are practicing in mediation. Without those standards, the quality of mediation would be so much lower. And also the reasonable supervision, not too excessive, not too low, but the reasonable supervision over the quality of professional and practicing mediators is granted. So because of these benefits, certification is recommended and attestation as well. Thank you so much for watching.